Welcome back, basketball fans. As you could see by the title today, we're going to be talking about the Sweet 16, obviously the matchups between remaining teams and the reseeding of these 16 teams that actually have qualified. This year's tournament has went as smoothly as any tournament in the history that I can remember, where if you literally went with the majority of the favorites, you're probably doing pretty well in your office pool right now. Um, Unfortunately for me, I always look for a few of the teams that potentially can upset the apple cart. And by picking those this year, it kind of put me into a negative position in my pool because obviously some other teams have just went for the highest ranked teams, and it's worked out pretty well. Obviously, the lowest team to get through are the Arkansas Razorbacks. But to be fair, this is a team that had one of the best recruiting years last year. Obviously, had a lot of great players following Coach Cal from Kentucky to Arkansas. And so it's not really a surprise that finally at this point of the year, they're finally coming to their own. And we'll be talking about that and much more after this short break. So, welcome back. Let's get to it. So, this year, it's been a really interesting March Madness. And the reality of the situation is it's going to be some really intriguing games in the Sweet 16 because a lot of the teams that are matched up are really competitive. So we should be looking forward to some really great, very tightly contested matches, which is exactly what you want, especially at this point of the tournament. Unfortunately, past years you had a Cinderella team that has gotten through, and just as many times as they've performed well, they tend to sort of fade after making their stand. And so this year, I don't expect any of that to happen, but anything is possible. So the new seedings, obviously Duke is number one. That's not a surprise. Duke came in this year, obviously winning the ACC tournament. Even with Cooper Flag being injured, they were still able to get over that hump, still win an ACC tournament, telling you that once he got back, obviously the team would be stronger. And, it's kind of a good scenario to let the other players need to carry the team moving into a tournament, because this way you're not going to be solely relying on one individual. As far as Florida, this is a team that won the SEC tournament, beating Auburn. So coming out of the SEC tournament, and the SEC conference, which is the best conference in NCAA basketball, it's no surprise that, Florida is number two. At number three, Houston. Obviously, Houston has done exactly what they needed to do. They had to come through a tough game against Gonzaga, but after that, obviously, they're a team that was highly respected. Obviously, coming in this year, have got a lot of praise and consistently have lived up to that for the most part. Then, of course, Auburn, who for the majority of the year was considered the number one team in college basketball. Obviously, they ended the year thanks to some injuries to their college player of the year. And obviously, being in a very tough conference, these kind of things happen. But they seem to be coming into their own right now. Obviously, their best player has been on the court for quite a few games now, and obviously is rounding into form at the perfect time in the tournament. Then, of course, Tennessee, another SEC team, right up there at number 5. Tennessee is a team that potentially could beat anyone. And that's the same thing you could say about Alabama, another SEC team. Both of these teams have had some fantastic wins during the year, but they'd also lost a few tough games as well. So it'll be interesting to see really how good they are at this point of the season. Michigan State, I haven't been really high on Michigan State. I know that obviously slam dunk champion son is on the team, and obviously he was a McDonald's All-American and got a ton of attention. But I've never really been a fan of Michigan State, to be fair, and the way they play has never been something that I've really gravitated towards. So I haven't really seen enough of them. Whereas Michigan, who I've always liked, I watch much more of them, and their Twin Towers tandem I was pretty impressed with early on this year. Then we get to, of course, Maryland. Maryland, Derek Queen, obviously this is a Mount Verde teammate of Cooper Flagg. The Mount Verde boys have done very well this year. Obviously, Duke just beat Baylor, which had the other Mount Verde point guard representing. Georgia obviously got beat in the first round with another Mount Verde player. And then, of course, UConn just lost in a tightly competitive game with the fifth of the Mount Verde players. So two remaining. Then Texas Tech. Obviously, Texas Tech has got a ton of attention. Obviously, JT Toppin has been excellent, and the team has just performed very well. And I'm not going to say they're a sleeper team because obviously they're not. This was a team that was highly ranked coming into the tournament and has remained in that position. But they're probably not one of the sexier teams. And because of that, they probably haven't got enough eyes on them compared to some of their other teams in the Sweet 16. Then, of course, Arizona. Arizona, people weren't sure how successful Arizona was going to be coming to this tournament. Obviously, they were 16th, but overall, people thought that potentially they had the potential to get beat, and I did too. So I did have them losing by this point in my pool. Kentucky, I'm a big Kentucky fan. Obviously, I was happy to see Coach Cal leave. I thought a change would be good for everybody, and I thought Kentucky did very well getting a team together this year. Obviously, not with the kind of all-American superstar players that Arkansas and Duke and other teams have, but nonetheless a very experienced senior sort of driven squad with very good shooting. And for the most part this year, they've lived up to expectations. They've done better than I think most people would have expected. Obviously, being in the SEC, it was a very tough conference. They won some, they lost some. They beat Duke early on in the year. They've had quite a few injuries that have really sort of been a negative towards them, especially losing their 2 point guards. But they're here. So, I think Kentucky fans have to be pretty confident and pretty happy with how they performed. A team like them, they can beat anyone if they're hitting their shots. But at the same time, injuries and missing shots can make them potentially get beat by anyone as well. The same thing could be said for BYU. I watched BYU quite a bit this season. Obviously, they were getting a ton of attention thanks to their great, tall, young point guard. But then they have tons of great shooters. Their inside man, very good as well. So they're a fun team to watch. And similarly, they could shoot their way to any game victory, but they could also shoot their way out of it. Michigan, been a bit inconsistent. Obviously, they got the great 2 big men, the Twin Towers. One very good, versatile player, a great passer. The other one, a big, physical, dominant player on the inside. And for the most part, they've done pretty well and are a pretty fun team to watch. Purdue, obviously, after losing their superstar player last year, this was kind of a rebuilding year. People, I don't think, really had huge expectations, but they've lived up to it. They've done well. They have to be pretty proud with where they are based on losing the players from last year that got them pretty far in the tournament. Old Miss, quite a surprise at this point to still be there. Obviously, they've outperformed their early NCAA committee ranking. And then we get to Arkansas. And to be fair, Arkansas being in the SEC, having some injuries to Boogie Fland and other situations, it's easy to sort of look past them. But when you look at the overall talent, even the depth that um, they have a good team. They're long, they're athletic. Their weakness is probably their shooting. They don't have a lot of knockdown 3 point shooters like they had last year. And obviously, last year they disappointed in the tournament. This year, I would say, well, not Arkansas, but Coach Cal's Kentucky team disappointed. But this year, I'd have to say, so far, it's been a successful tournament. If they lose their next game, I don't think Arkansas fans are going to be disappointed based on how things worked out, getting to the Sweet 16. Um, you know, but this could easily be the Cinderella team of the Sweet 16. When you think about how come I can't think of his name? Their leading scorer, who's obviously missed the first two games, a very physical, dynamic player. You throw him into a team that's sort of outperformed expectations. Boogie Fland is coming back from a thumb injury. Obviously, he's had a few games under his belt, and you figure the more he gets to play, the better he's going to get. And obviously, having that third guard is going to be important. We know historically teams that were really strong in their guard positions tend to do well in the tournament. Obviously, they're able to get shots off, they're able to create offense. And so it's important to have depth in that position. And I do think now that Boogie Fland is back, they do have that depth. And in truth, it might have helped Davis because they needed to rely on him to be more aggressive. Whereas before, maybe he didn't get as much touches or shots as he would have liked. So it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. I'm excited. Let's take a quick peek specifically at. Sorry, I'm just trying to add the other thing. Screen share. There we go. So let's take a look at the squads that are left, breaking it down. So we'll start with Auburn and Michigan. Auburn, Michigan, as I said, two teams that people had very different expectations for. Michigan was a good team, but in truth, they were hot and cold for much of the season, whereas Auburn has been fantastic, ending 30-5, 15-3 in the SEC, which is fantastic. They're a great team, a deep squad, very exciting. And I think matchup wise, they match up very well with Michigan. Michigan obviously has two big men that are both versatile and very good, but Auburn has big men very similar to them. So I think when this comes down to this game, the big men are probably going to offset each other. So it's going to remain to the guards and what they're able to do to be really effective. And I do favor Auburn. Obviously, they've been through a tougher schedule, and I think their guards are just a better group of guards overall. So I do expect Auburn to get through to the next group. But in a game that should be very entertaining. Then, of course, we get Duke versus Arizona. They met earlier on in the year. Was it in the Honolulu one? I'm not sure. I can't remember. Arizona's been inconsistent this year. Obviously, they have a lot of highly regarded players, but it hasn't really come together. Whereas Duke, being 19-1, only one loss in conference. I think it was to Clemson, a very good team, a team that beat Kentucky 33-3 overall. Obviously, with the player who I think is going to be the consensus player of the year in Cooper Flagg, and the men's version of Caitlin Clark. Imagine the narratives that are going to be being pushed forward after he gets all the awards and does all these great things. People are going to be in their feelings in a big fucking way. But obviously Arizona and Duke are familiar with each other. They played each other earlier. But these teams are not the same teams they once were. Duke has gotten much better. They're obviously shooting really well in the tournament. Cooper Flagg has gotten better and better as the season's progressed. Malo Watch has gotten better as well. They've gotten better production off of the bench from their bench players, especially Slim, who is one of the most deadly shooters coming off the bench in NCAA basketball. Really a great player. If the man from Syracuse, sorry, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, if he's fit and they have that third big man, or sorry, it's not even third, their fourth big man on the roster, that's going to be a big help as well. I think they're just going to overwhelm Arizona on the boards, which is obviously going to get them a lot of open threes. And I do think Duke is going to come through this and probably far easier than expected. Then we get to Ole Miss. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Ole Miss versus Michigan State. I sort of was hoping in my bracket Iowa State was going to win. I'm surprised Ole Miss ended up getting here. A record of 10-8, obviously in the SEC, 24-11 overall. But as I said, teams in the SEC are hard to look past because even though maybe they have a record that's 10-8, you got to understand the quality of competition they've been playing throughout the year. Very high, far higher than any other conference. Michigan State obviously is the team that people expect to win. 17-3 in conference play, 29-6. But I would not sleep, excuse me, on any SEC team because it's not as if Ole Miss hasn't played teams as good or better than Michigan State, and they have. So a lot of this is going to be based on how the teams are feeling this day, and just overall coaching, who's sort of figured out each other the best in stopping their offense. It's a good game. And if you were picking for a potential upset match, this is the one I think you could easily look for. I think Ole Miss versus Michigan State. Obviously, majority of people are probably going to go Michigan State just with the name recognition, the coach. But I would not be surprised if Ole Miss wins this game. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Then we get to BYU, Alabama. This should be an old-fashioned shootout. BYU 26-9. As I said, great shooters, a lot of great shooters coming off the bench. Great shooter after great shooter. Alabama, similarly, right? Alabama's got a little weakness on the boards. Defensively, they're not the best. And I think this game should really be open, up and down, and probably will go down to the final minute to determine who hits the big shot to win this game. And I think that's how close it's going to be. I think you wouldn't be wrong picking BYU or Alabama. Obviously, BYU so far in the tournament has been doing very well, whereas Alabama, a team that at one point during the season, many people had as the number one squad in college basketball. I think they've fallen quite a bit from that sort of situation that they were once in. So again, I would not be surprised whoever won this. I think it's going to come down to shot making in the final minute or two, and whoever's able to knock down those big shots inevitably is the one who's going to win. And truthfully, both teams have knockdown shooters that can make those great plays. So it should be a very fun game. Pick your poison. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. Then we get to Florida versus Maryland. I've been super impressed with Maryland. Obviously, I'm a big McQueen fan. Supported Mount Verde last year and was super excited to see these guys in college. He has totally lived up to expectation, obviously playing himself right into the lottery with this NBA draft. So congratulations to him. Big money for him and his family in the future. But again, here you have a team with 32-4 versus a team 27-8, 14-6, and 14-4. But you got the Big Ten versus the SEC. I think Florida, specifically the guard play, is just going to be too much for Maryland. Obviously, Maryland, has good big men, so should have moments of success. But overall, in NCAA tournament, it's not how good your big men are. It's how good your guards are. So I look forward to Florida winning this game, and I think it's probably going to be a little wider than most people would expect. But let me know in the comment section below what you think about this one. Then we get over to the other bracket. Houston, another number one seed. Obviously, a great guard team, very good big men as well. Great defensive tenacity, a team that really hits the boards very well versus Purdue, who for Purdue, they're not supposed to be here. They are a bit of a Cinderella story in truth, because this is a team from the Big Ten. Obviously, you have Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland. I don't know when Maryland moved to the Big Ten, but for me, they were always an ACC team. It's weird the way they fucked up the conferences, but nonetheless, and now Purdue, who obviously is here as well. I think Houston is just going to be too much. Obviously, guard play, once again, is what's important, and I think that's going to be what carries them forward past Purdue. And don't get me wrong, I love Purdue's two guards, especially the point guard. Obviously, Lowry is a great 3-point shooter, so they're a good team. The problem with them is they're both not the most athletic guards. So even though they're dangerous offensively, defensively, they're not really the toughest players to play against. So I would not be surprised to see Houston's guards overwhelm Purdue, especially with the defensive tenacity that they play with. But it could be a good game, and obviously it could be competitive down to the end. Then we get to a game that probably will be one of the best games in the tournament. You got Big 12 Texas Tech versus SEC Arkansas. Obviously, Texas Tech was a team really favored going to this NCAA tournament. Arkansas, the opposite. But if you look at overall talent, Arkansas is right up there, if not more so than Texas Tech. I know this is a bit of an upset, but I'm going to favor Arkansas to beat Texas Tech to move forward to be the Cinderella team from this Sweet 16, a number 10 beating a number 3. And maybe it's just because obviously I'm a Kentucky fan and I supported Coach Cal for a long time. So, I would like to see him go on to do some good things, especially with how negative last season ended. So obviously it'd be great for him to bounce back with a real positive year this one. And just because I'm a Kentucky fan doesn't mean I feel like you need to throw great coaches who've done great for the team, the organization under the bus either. So I'd love to see Coach Cal pull this one off. Obviously, I know a lot of the players that are on Arkansas that were on Kentucky last year, so I cheer for them and I have big support. I'm a big Boogie Flan fan. I thought last year in high school basketball, he was definitely one of the best point guards in high school basketball, and I knew he would do well in college. And I assume he's going to do pretty well in the pros as well. Coach Cal has had a lot of success with guards in the pro game, so I think Boogie Flan is just going to be another one of those outstanding NBA players. But let me know in the comments what you think. And then last but not least, Kentucky 10-8 in conference play versus Tennessee 12-6. These teams know each other really well. And that's why in this case, anything can happen. And I know for my bracket, it would be terrible if Kentucky won, because even though I had Kentucky getting here, I don't have them going through. I didn't think they would beat Tennessee because Tennessee was playing so well. And Kentucky with injuries and inconsistency was the opposite of that. But at the same time, I really was hoping Kentucky would do well. Obviously, new coach, Coach Cal in the rearview mirror. You want to see a team move on and do well, right? Obviously, move past some of the negativity they've had the last few years. I think Pope is great, fits the squad perfect. Obviously, got a great personality and temperament. So I think that's going to be important. They also have a very experienced team. And obviously, in these kind of tournaments, that's also important. A great shooting team, which means, as I said earlier, if they're knocking down shots, they're going to beat Tennessee. But Tennessee is familiar with them. They know how they play. So, Kentucky's going to have to be smart. They're going to have to drive it hard to the hole because that's the only way they're going to allow for those open three-point shots. If they just try to open up the three-point shot without getting into the lane, without collapsing that defense, they're going to have a real tough night. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how Tennessee defends them. Obviously, Tennessee's a great defensive squad, has very good guards. So it should be really interesting for Kentucky. Is their key guard going to be healthy? If he is, I would favor them for sure. If he's not, I would lean to Tennessee to win. Obviously, in my bracket, I need Tennessee to win. If they don't win, it's going to kill my bracket, and I'm never going to be able to sort of move forward in my office pool, which is embarrassing because I'm the only person at my work who actually watches college basketball. Yet year after year after year after year, I never win. And the girl who generally wins is a South African girl who doesn't even watch basketball. The craziness of it. But I am favoring Tennessee to win against Kentucky, even though I won't be sad if Kentucky goes through and wins. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the late Elite Eight after these games are unfolded. But as I stated here, I expect Auburn, Duke, uh, possibly Old Miss, possibly BYU, Florida, Houston, Arkansas, and Tennessee to be in the Elite Eight. And then it'll be interesting matchups from there. But we'll stay tuned, follow up from there, and see exactly how these things unfold, see how much of this I got correct or how much I totally uh, torpedoed. Let me know what you think about my analysis in the comment section below. Lily is not having it. She's not interested at all. But, that's not a surprise. But thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned to next time when we'll be discussing the Elite Eight and obviously other videos talking about the NBA and what's going on in the league. And obviously, NCAA female basketball once a storyline kicks in that obviously is intriguing. I know it's unfortunate Juju Watkins just blew out her knee. So obviously her season for USC is finished. That's obviously disappointed. She is definitely one of the best players in NCAA female basketball and somebody people were really looking forward to joining the WNBA uh, just to be the antithesis to Caitlin Clark. But at the same time, injuries do happen in women's basketball. ACL injuries are epidemic. So it's not really that much of a shock or surprise. But obviously, I'm a fan, so I'm a little disappointed. But for this tournament, I was sort of pro Notre Dame. I was hoping Notre Dame was going to win. They have a great team, a great starting five, great depth, and you got to love their point guard. What a fire plug she is. But stay tuned to more. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.